Tommy and his dog, Rusty, a tale of friendship in the countryside. The sun was just beginning to rise over the gentle hills of the countryside, casting a golden glow across the fields. The early morning dew sparkled on the grass, reflecting the light in a million tiny diamonds. Birds chirped happily in the trees, greeting the day with their songs. It was the perfect setting for a boy and his dog to explore the world together. Tommy was an energetic 8-year-old who lived in a small farmhouse with his parents. He had tousled brown hair and a pair of bright blue eyes that always seemed to be full of curiosity. Tommy's best friend was a dog named Rusty, a border collie with a coat of black and white fur and a tail that wagged as if it were powered by a tiny motor. Rusty had been with Tommy since he was a puppy, and the two were inseparable. Wherever Tommy went, Rusty was sure to follow. The countryside was a playground for them, a place where they could run, explore, and let their imaginations roam free. Every morning, Tommy and Rusty would set out to visit the fields that stretched out behind their farmhouse. It was their favorite place to play, a wide expanse of grass dotted with wild flowers and bordered by a small grove of trees. Here they could play fetch, chase each other, or simply lie in the grass and watch the clouds drift by. Tommy loved to explore the fields, always searching for something new and exciting. Rusty was his constant companion, sniffing the air and alerting Tommy to anything interesting. Together they would find all sorts of treasures, shiny pebbles, colorful feathers, and sometimes even the occasional old horseshoe. These little discoveries were like pieces of a puzzle that told the story of the countryside, and Tommy loved to collect them in a small wooden box he kept in his room. One morning, as they were exploring the field, Rusty suddenly stopped and pointed his nose toward a distant corner where the grass was taller and wilder. Tommy followed Rusty's gaze and saw something moving in the distance. It was a small family of deer, grazing peacefully in the early morning light. Tommy held his breath, not wanting to startle them. Rusty, too, remained perfectly still, his ears perked up and his tail wagging slowly. The sight of the deer was magical, and Tommy felt a sense of awe and wonder. He knew that the countryside was full of life, but seeing these graceful creatures up close was something special. After a few moments, the deer moved on, disappearing into the trees. Tommy turned to Rusty and grinned. "Good boy, Rusty," he said, patting the dog on the head. "Let's see what else we can find today." As they continued their exploration, Tommy and Rusty came across a small stream that ran through the field. It was a hidden gem, a place where the water was clear and cool, and small fish darted beneath the surface. Tommy loved to skip stones across the stream, trying to see how many times he could make them bounce. Rusty, on the other hand, was more interested in splashing around in the water, chasing the ripples and enjoying the coolness against his fur. The stream became a regular stop on their morning adventures, a place where they could relax and enjoy the peacefulness of the countryside. Tommy would often sit on the bank, dipping his feet in the water, while Rusty lay beside him, his head resting on his paws. It was moments like these that Tommy cherished, moments where he could simply be with his best friend and enjoy the beauty of nature. But it wasn't always play and relaxation in the countryside. Sometimes there were chores to do and responsibilities to uphold. Tommy's parents owned a small farm, and there was always work to be done. Tommy didn't mind helping out, especially when he had Rusty by his side. Together they would feed the chickens, gather eggs, and help with the gardening. Rusty was a great helper, always eager to please and quick to follow Tommy's lead. One day, while Tommy and Rusty were helping in the garden, they heard a rustling noise coming from the nearby bushes. Rusty's ears perked up, and he darted toward the sound. Tommy followed, curious to see what had caught Rusty's attention. To their surprise, they found a small kitten, no more than a few weeks old, tangled in a piece of wire. The kitten was scared and moving softly, unable to free itself. Tommy's heart went out to the tiny creature, and he quickly knelt down to help. Rusty, ever the gentle soul, lay down beside the kitten, as if to offer comfort. With careful hands, Tommy untangled the wire and lifted the kitten into his arms. It was a soft, fluffy ball of fur, with big green eyes that seemed to stare right into Tommy's soul. Tommy knew they couldn't leave the kitten alone, so he brought it back to the farmhouse, where his mother helped them find a safe place for it to stay. They gave the kitten some food and water, and soon it was purring contentedly. Rusty was delighted to have a new friend, and he spent the rest of the day playing with the kitten, chasing it around the kitchen and keeping it entertained. As the days went by, Tommy and Rusty continued their adventures in the countryside. They visited the fields, the stream, and all their favorite spots, always finding something new to discover. The kitten, whom they named Whiskers, became a regular part of their adventures, often following them around and joining in their games. The countryside was a place of endless possibilities, a place where a boy and his dog could be free to explore and dream. Tommy knew he was lucky to have such a beautiful place to call home, and he cherished every moment he spent with Rusty and Whiskers. Together they made memories that would last a lifetime, memories of friendship, adventure, and the simple joys of life in the countryside. Tommy and his dog, Rusty, embarked on an adventure into the heart of the forest, where the tall trees stretched high into the sky, and the thick foliage cast a canopy of green above them. They began their journey just as the sun was beginning to rise, casting a warm, golden light across the landscape. Tommy was a curious and adventurous boy, with bright blue eyes that sparkled with excitement at the thought of exploring the wilderness. Rusty, his faithful dog, was a golden retriever with a friendly disposition and boundless energy. The two were inseparable, and the forest was their favorite place to explore. As they entered the forest, the sounds of nature enveloped them. The gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze, the distant calls of birds, and the occasional crackling of twigs underfoot created a symphony that echoed through the trees. Tommy carried a small backpack with some snacks and a canteen of water, while Rusty trotted along at his side, his tail wagging with enthusiasm. The first animal they encountered was a group of monkeys swinging from tree to tree. The monkeys chattered and played, showing off their agility as they leaped from one branch to another. Tommy and Rusty watched in awe as the monkeys performed acrobatic feats, their long tails and nimble limbs allowing them to navigate the treetops with ease. Continuing deeper into the forest, they came across a clearing where a family of elephants was grazing. The massive creatures moved with slow grace, their trunks reaching down to pull up clumps of grass. The largest elephant, a matriarch, noticed Tommy and Rusty and gently waved her trunk in their direction, as if acknowledging their presence. Tommy marveled at the sheer size of the elephants, while Rusty kept a respectful distance, not wanting to disturb them. As they walked along a narrow path, they stumbled upon a pride of lions lounging in the shade. The lions were regal and powerful, with their golden manes and muscular bodies. The pride's leader, a magnificent male, watched over his family, his eyes calm yet vigilant. Tommy and Rusty remained at a safe distance, observing the lions from behind a thick bush. The lions seemed relaxed, yawning and stretching as they basked in the warmth of the afternoon sun. Further into the forest, the landscape changed, becoming more lush and dense. They came across a small stream where a group of koalas were drinking. These shy, gentle creatures were known for their distinctive antlers and sleek fur. Tommy and Rusty quietly observed from behind a large rock, careful not to startle them. The koalas drank from the stream, their ears twitching at the faintest sound. It was a serene scene, and Tommy felt a sense of peace watching the animals in their natural habitat. As the day wore on, Tommy and Rusty explored deeper into the forest, encountering a variety of birds with vibrant plumage. Parrots squawked and sang from the treetops, their colorful feathers creating a dazzling display. They also spotted a group of toucans with their large, curved beaks, perched on a high branch. The forest was alive with the sounds and sights of these exotic birds. In the late afternoon, the sun began to set, casting a warm, orange glow over the forest. Tommy and Rusty made their way back toward the edge of the forest, taking their time to enjoy the beauty of the surroundings. They passed by a small waterfall where butterflies danced in the mist, their delicate wings shimmering in the fading light. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the sun was setting, and the sky was painted with hues of pink and purple. Tommy and Rusty sat on a rock, watching the sunset, and reflecting on the incredible journey they had experienced. They had seen a wide array of animals, each with its own unique beauty and charm. The forest had revealed its secrets to them, and they felt grateful for the opportunity to explore such a magical place. As the evening descended, Tommy and Rusty made their way back home, their hearts filled with memories of the day's adventure. The forest had become a part of them, and they knew they would return again to continue their exploration and discover even more wonders hidden within its depths. A day with Tommy and Rusty. Tommy's alarm clock rang softly at 6:30 a.m. It was a sound that gently woke him from his dreams without jolting him awake. Rusty, his faithful dog, was already up, his tail wagging as he lay at the foot of the bed. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting a warm glow over the bedroom. Tommy yawned, stretched, and gave Rusty a gentle rub behind his ears. The dog's tail thumped against the bed, a rhythmic beat that said, "Good morning, let's get moving!" Morning exercise. The first item on their daily routine was morning exercise. Tommy slipped on his running shoes, a pair of well-worn sneakers that had seen countless miles, and grabbed Rusty's leash from the hook by the door. Rusty was a medium-sized dog, a mix of breeds with a shiny brown coat and bright, intelligent eyes. He was always ready for adventure, and a morning jog was his favorite way to start the day. As they left the house, the early morning air was cool and refreshing. The neighborhood was quiet, with only a few early risers out for their own exercise routines. Tommy and Rusty ran down the street, past rows of houses with neatly trimmed lawns and flowering bushes. They turned into the park, where the trees provided a canopy of shade. Birds sang from the branches, and squirrels scurried across the grass. Tommy and Rusty followed a trail that looped around a small pond. It was a popular spot for joggers and dog walkers, and Rusty enjoyed meeting other dogs along the way. They stopped occasionally to greet a neighbor or let Rusty play with a fellow canine. Tommy appreciated these moments, as they gave him a chance to catch his breath and chat with the people he knew from the area. After completing their loop around the park, Tommy and Rusty made their way back home. The jog had energized them both, and Rusty was panting happily, his tail wagging with every step. Tommy felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing they had started the day with exercise and fresh air. Breakfast and chores. Once they returned home, it was time for breakfast. Tommy poured Rusty's kibble into his bowl and added a few pieces of cooked chicken as a special treat. Rusty gobbled it up eagerly, his tail still wagging. Tommy made himself a simple breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, along with a glass of orange juice. As they ate, Tommy thought about the day's plans. He had a few chores to take care of around the house, but he knew Rusty would be content to play in the backyard while he worked. After breakfast, Tommy put the dishes in the sink and grabbed a small basket of laundry. He headed to the laundry room, where he loaded the washing machine and started it with a hum. Rusty followed Tommy to the backyard, where he had a collection of toys to keep him entertained. There was a rubber ball, a rope tug, and a squeaky toy shaped like a bone. Rusty loved them all, and he was quick to grab the squeaky toy and start playing. Tommy watched him from the kitchen window as he wiped down the countertops and swept the floor. Mid-morning playtime. With the chores done, Tommy went outside to join Rusty in the backyard. It was time for some play. Tommy picked up the rubber ball and threw it across the yard, and Rusty sprinted after it with incredible speed. He caught it in midair and brought it back to Tommy, dropping it at his feet with a joyful bark. Tommy laughed and threw the ball again, enjoying the simple pleasure of playing with his dog. They spent the next hour playing fetch and tug-of-war, with Rusty clearly having the time of his life. The sun was higher in the sky now, and the warmth was beginning to build. Tommy could feel the sweat on his forehead, but he didn't mind. It was a great way to bond with Rusty and burn off some energy. Lunch and rest. As noon approached, Tommy and Rusty headed inside for lunch. Tommy made himself a sandwich with turkey and cheese, adding a few slices of tomato and lettuce for crunch. He also sliced up an apple, which he shared with Rusty. The dog enjoyed the sweet fruit, and Tommy enjoyed the company. After lunch, it was time for a bit of rest. Tommy settled on the couch with a book, while Rusty curled up beside him. The dog had a way of making himself comfortable, resting his head on Tommy's lap and letting out a contented sigh. It was one of those peaceful moments that made Tommy appreciate the simple pleasures in life. Tommy read a few chapters of his book, glancing down occasionally to check on Rusty. The dog was fast asleep, his breathing slow and steady. Tommy smiled and continued reading, knowing they had more adventures planned for later in the day. Afternoon walk and sunset. In the afternoon, Tommy decided to take Rusty for a longer walk. There was a trail on the outskirts of town that led to a beautiful viewpoint overlooking the countryside. It was one of Tommy's favorite spots, and he knew Rusty would love it too. They set off in the late afternoon, with the sun beginning to dip toward the horizon. The trail was quiet, with only a few other walkers and their dogs in sight. Rusty trotted along beside Tommy, sniffing at the plants and occasionally stopping to investigate a new scent. The walk to the viewpoint took about an hour, and by the time they arrived, the sky was painted with hues of orange and pink. The sunset was breathtaking, with the golden light casting long shadows over the landscape. Tommy sat on a bench and watched the sunset, while Rusty explored the area, his tail wagging as he discovered new sights and smells. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Tommy called Rusty back, and they began their walk home. The evening air was cool, and the stars started to appear in the sky. It was a peaceful end to a wonderful day, and Tommy felt grateful to have Rusty by his side. Evening routine and bedtime. When they returned home, Tommy fed Rusty his dinner and prepared a light supper for himself. He made a simple salad with mixed greens, cherry tomatoes, and grilled chicken. Rusty finished his dinner quickly and sat at Tommy's feet, hoping for a few scraps. Tommy gave him a small piece of chicken, which Rusty accepted with a wagging tail. After dinner, Tommy and Rusty relaxed in the living room. Tommy turned on the TV to watch a movie, while Rusty curled up on his favorite dog bed. The movie was an action-adventure, with plenty of excitement and thrills, but Rusty was more interested in resting after a long day of activity. As the movie came to an end, Tommy started his bedtime routine. He brushed his teeth, changed into his pajamas, and made sure all the doors were locked. Rusty followed him, his paws patting softly on the floor. When Tommy climbed into bed, Rusty hopped up and settled in beside him. The dog had his own spot at the foot of the bed, but he always liked to be close to Tommy. With the lights off, the room was quiet, and Tommy could hear the distant sounds of the night, crickets chirping, a car driving by, and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. Rusty was already fast asleep, his breathing steady and calm. Tommy felt a sense of contentment, knowing he had shared a wonderful day with his faithful companion. As he drifted off to sleep, Tommy thought about the adventures they would have the next day. It might be similar to today, or it might be entirely different. But one thing was certain: Tommy and Rusty would face it together, as best friends and partners in crime. The bond between them was strong, and each day was an opportunity to strengthen that bond even more. With those thoughts in mind, Tommy closed his eyes and fell asleep, dreaming of new adventures with Rusty, the best dog a boy could ever ask for.